Alright, so for the last couple of days, or weeks, or whatever it's been, I've seen a lot of advertising for a game called Riders of Icarus. Maybe you have too. Ultimately, I got curious and decided to take a look at it. Riders of Icarus is an MMORPG, similar to something like World of Warcraft or Terra or RuneScape or any of the old MMOs that are out there. And I know I'm not alone when I say that I myself have wasted countless hours of my life playing World of Warcraft and RuneScape. So, let's take a look at what I consider to be the most important part of any game, the gameplay. Riders of Icarus has 5 classes, each trying to put their own unique spin on the familiar classes and other kinds of playable characters that you see in pretty much every MMO. The game even rates them in terms of difficulty, telling you which ones they believe are most difficult or least difficult. I personally think that their rating of difficulty is kind of screwed up, but hey. They give you an option between 2 different modes of combat. You can use the stereotypical one you use in pretty much every other game, or you can use something that's more akin to what you might find in an old Fable game. Their action mode is kind of janky at times, but ultimately it is a little bit better if you're using a melee class. Now the first thing I chose to start off with was a rogue, because normally in games like this, most classes start off doing pretty negligible damage, and rogues are always pretty good damage dealers. Now I didn't realize how detailed their character creation system was. I mean, I'm sure there are games that are more detailed, but this is definitely more detailed than a lot I've seen. So after I finished creating some abomination with a child head, I randomized the settings until I found something I liked. I chose a name, I set them sweater hogs to full power, and then I started the game. And I gotta tell you, rogues in this game were not what I was expecting at all. In most games, rogues use stealth and they come in and ambush people, they disable people, they've got stuns, things like that. It looked like in this game mostly you just tried to move around so fast that stuff really couldn't hit you that well, and dodging doesn't always stop things from hitting you, and ultimately you didn't really seem to do a tremendous amount of damage. It was an interesting take on the rogue, but it was something that I personally wasn't a big fan of. A lot of it had to do with using the evasion techniques, which were basically just double tapping WAS or D. And while you were in that evasion mode, a lot of your moves behaved differently. There was a grappling hook that would pull you to people, there were kicks, there were a few things that you could combo and, use for more effect, but rogues and the Riders of Icarus just seem to be missing the things that rogues normally have in most other games, and they just seem to be the flashiest class that had no real substance. Now, admittedly, I didn't play this to the max level, and, maybe I was doing something considerably wrong, but it just seemed as though, of all the classes that I played, Rogue disappointed me the most personally. I don't know how it might have been for anybody else, but that's just me. Now, the next class that I checked out was the Two-Hander Warrior. They're a little slower, but they do big damage. They're pretty mobile in a fight, they've got a lot of moves for getting around, and they've got a lot of moves to kind of control people. Like most warriors in most games, they've got a charge that you can go in and stun people with. They've got a move that, it knocks people up in 9 months, give or take. They got a move that when they come back down, you smash them into the ground. They make pretty solid use of the game's combo system, which in other classes kind of seems to be just random as how moves go together in the combo. But for the Berserkers, it actually kind of makes sense. You knock them up, and when they're coming down, you smash them down. Or, use the kick to push them back, and then you charge into them and stun them. They kind of make sense with that. One thing I will say for this class, they seem difficult to balance for PvP. The kick will knock people back, kind of stun them for a sec. The charge stuns people. The knock up knocks them up and down for a little bit. I think the slam knocks them down again for a little bit more. So I see that class being very difficult to balance in PvP. This is still the beta, so they could change, this or that about their kit, and, ultimately you never know what's going to happen in the future. The next class that I looked at was the Mage, and they were the class that was supposedly the very hard difficulty, the most difficult of any of the classes to play, and, they've got, like, ice attacks and fire attacks, things like that, normal mage stuff. They, like rogues, have the ability to, double tap, the directional buttons and blink forward and backwards. This move doesn't have a lot of a cooldown, so they're probably pretty mobile. You can't do it left and right, but forwards and backwards. The strange part to me was that for the most part, none of your spells really seemed to cost any mana. Most of them had like less than a 1 second cast time, and you could do them all while you were moving. So you pretty much just gunned everything down while you were on the run, and there wasn't a whole lot that anything could really do about you. And reaching like level 4 or something, pretty early in the game, you get a move that it's like the Berserker's charge moves, where you have to hold the button for a certain period of time, and after like 3 levels of charging, it increases the damage it does. At level 4, it was one-shotting pretty much every mob you used it against, and that move had a cooldown, but it was still pretty extreme for that level. And the class is definitely pretty squishy, so I guess that could be what they're implying with the difficulty of the class, but it seemed pretty simple to just spam the ice move over and over again until a target got frozen, and then just keep shooting it over and over and over again for increased damage. With that being said, the Mage is probably the most fun of all the classes to play, most likely due in no small part to all those reasons. Priests were pretty much what I was expecting, with the exception that they were much more offensive than I believed that they would be. Normally priests are a class that pretty much entirely made to just heal and support people, but they could do some decent damage in the right situation. Their basic moves give them these holy orbs basically every time you cast them, and the more holy orbs you have, you can have up to 3 I think. The more holy orbs you have, you get increased speed and I think increased damage. And some moves consume them to do damage, some moves consume them to do healing. You have a generic just like single target heal, as well as heals that heal other people. The last class I checked out was the tank class, or Guardian. And I wasn't really sure what I was expecting here. Tanks are usually the backbone of any kind of PvE in an MMO, so I was definitely curious as to how they were going to have this class able to keep aggro and keep control of a group of mobs, keeping in mind how the other classes are set up and trying to work with them. Keeping aggro would definitely depend on how well your teammates use their abilities to lessen their aggro, from which plenty of the classes I definitely saw that a lot of the other classes had the ability to lower their threat, whether that was passively or an active move, but Guardians in this game actually seem to do a decent amount of damage, which would definitely help in tanking. They also have a lot of ways to reduce incoming damage or pull mobs to you to start an encounter or to get something off a party member. And like the other classes in this game, the Guardian takes advantage of certain combos that string together. Like if you throw the Wonder Woman lasso out, the next move that it requests you to use or wants you to use is the Shield Bash, and you get bonus effects and things like that. Now again, I didn't level this class to the max level, so I have no idea what max level or end game tanking would be like. I imagine at this point in the game it would be pretty difficult. No one really has their classes and abilities down to the letter yet, but it would definitely be something that'd be interesting to see when people start getting to endgame and trying the endgame content. The other aspect of gameplay in Riders of Icarus is, of course, the being able to tame and ride all kinds of different mounts. From pretty much anything you see walking around or even flying around, you can sneak up behind it, jump on its back, and tame it as your own creature. You go through a bit of a quick time event, then if you succeed, the creature is yours. If not, you get thrown off, and you can just try again if you want. And of course, there's a bunch of different things that you can tame and things like that. You see people riding different things, spiders, bears, wolves. You'll see people riding all kinds of things. And of course, there's also the aerial mounts and things like that. One of the biggest drawbacks that I encountered playing this game is, it places a lot of emphasis on flying around and going places, but it seems like there's a lot of invisible walls, so you can't really fly on a mount and just go from zone to zone. You kind of have to stay within the path. But there's an incredible amount of those creatures out there to tame and whatever, fly around on, ride, show off. So if you're one of those people who really enjoys hunting down and collecting the vanity pets of the different kinds of mounts in other games, this is definitely going to be one of those games that's going to do it for you. Overall, Riders of Icarus is definitely an interesting new take on some aspects of the MMO or the RPG genre, but it's interesting, and there's some new things to try out. There's a lot of stuff to collect, a lot of new things to see in it. And right now it's in its open beta stage, so it's free to play, so there's really nothing to lose from trying it. If you think it looks interesting, give it a shot. If not, don't, Either way, thanks a lot for watching. Feel free to agree, disagree with any of the shit that I might have said in the comments, whatever. And have a good one.